He showed up at her door at 2 in the morning. No cameras, no entourage, just a man in a black hoodie holding a single white lily. Nobody believed Karen Mitchell when she told this story. Not at first. She was a 34-year-old hospice nurse from Decatur, Georgia. Tired eyes, sensible shoes, the kind of woman who clocked double shifts without complaint. She had no reason to lie, and absolutely no reason to expect what happened next. It was November 2002. Karen had been caring for a young patient named Tommy, Thomas Allen Reed Jr., just 9 years old, diagnosed with a rare bone cancer called Ewing's sarcoma. Tommy had maybe 3 weeks left. His mother, Diane, hadn't slept in days. The Reed family had nothing. No savings, no connections, no one powerful in their corner. Just each other and the nurses who showed up every morning. Karen had been writing letters, desperate ones, to charities, to foundations, to celebrities. Anything to get Tommy one last wish before time ran out. She'd sent dozens. Most went unanswered. One did not. But here's what nobody expected. The response didn't come through an assistant, a publicist, or a foundation. It came through a phone call. A quiet voice on the line said simply, "I'd like to come, but I need you to keep it between us." Karen thought it was a prank. She almost hung up. She didn't. The date was set for 3 days later. Karen told no one except Diane. Diane wept. Then she asked, "Why us?" And that question, that simple, heartbroken question, is exactly the thread that unravels this entire story. Because Karen would later learn that Tommy wasn't the only one. Not even close. Over the next 2 decades, stories began surfacing. Quietly at first, a hospital worker in Chicago, a school teacher in rural Mississippi, a grieving father in Newark. Each one with the same impossible detail. A man in a disguise, a private visit, a child whose world changed completely, and strict instructions to stay silent, not forever, but until the time felt right. That time is now. Let's go back to that November night in Decatur. Karen remembers the rain. She was standing outside the hospice facility under a broken awning, watching a black SUV idle at the curb. No logos, no security detail that she could see, though she'd later find out there were 2 plainclothes men watching from a distance. The back door opened and a figure stepped out wearing a black hoodie, sunglasses despite the darkness, and those unmistakable hands, long, graceful, clutching a lily. She knew immediately. "He shook my hand first," Karen told a close friend years later. He said, "Thank you for inviting me." Like I had done him a favor, I almost fell over. They walked in together through a side entrance. Karen had cleared the hallway. Diane was already inside Tommy's room, sitting beside the bed where her son lay small and pale against white sheets, one of those little plastic hospital toys on the nightstand. The door opened. Tommy looked up, and then everything shattered. Because Tommy didn't scream or gasp or cry. He just stared for a long, long moment. And then he said, in a tiny voice, hoarse from medication, "I knew you'd come. I told Mama you'd come." Diane pressed her hand over her mouth. Karen stepped back into the doorway. And the man in the black hoodie, the most famous face on the planet, sat down in the plastic chair beside Tommy's bed like it was the most natural thing in the world, pulled off his sunglasses, leaned forward, and said, "Tell me everything about you." They talked for over 2 hours. 2 hours. No cameras, no press release, no charity photo op. Just a man and a dying boy talking about cartoons, about race cars, about what clouds are made of. At one point, Tommy asked if it hurt to moonwalk. The man laughed, actually laughed, and said, "Only the next morning." Karen stood guard outside the door. She said she could hear laughter coming from inside that room. Real laughter. The kind she hadn't heard on that ward in months. Before he left, he handed Diane a sealed envelope. Inside was a handwritten note and enough money to cover Tommy's remaining care. A Disney World trip for the whole family. Wheelchair accessible, already arranged. And a private phone number with a message that said, "Call if you need anything, I mean it." Diane called twice. Both times, he answered. Now, here is where this story takes a turn you didn't see coming. Karen kept her promise and stayed silent for years. But after Tommy passed, peacefully, 10 days after that visit, having made it to Disney World in a rented van with his whole family, Diane eventually began talking, quietly, to other hospice families, to other nurses in that same network. And what she discovered shook her to her core. There were others. A nurse named Rosa Bautista in Chicago's Cook County had a nearly identical story from 2001. A child named Marco, 7 years old, leukemia. Same black hoodie, same side entrance, same instruction. Please don't tell anyone yet. Rosa had kept it locked inside for over a decade, afraid nobody would believe.